Hey everyone, my name is Raelis Vasquez. I hope you're all being safe out there. If you're new to my channel and think that I've earned it, please like and subscribe. And as you can see, I've already started this painting. This painting is well in progress. And I want to talk about my process of creating this portrait, but I also want to go over some of the myths that I think that we have as oil painters, or I know there's some of you that work in acrylics, or you've been working drawing and you really wanted to begin oil painting. So I really want to simplify the process a little bit for you, as I know that there's a lot of preconceived notions of what it takes, and everyone has a different process, but for me, I have a really safe process that I would like to go over, and perhaps it'll encourage you to get started soon. So first, I just started discussing a little bit about my approach of creating this portrait. As you can see, I'm creating these value shapes, starting from the darks and working to the lights. Something that is also very important that I always try to keep in mind when I'm working is that I don't really fuss about the features right away. I try to get my values right. I'm painting the space around it. I'm painting big value shapes, so to speak. And the features are something that I really worry about, something that I really focus on and try to correct, whether it's later towards the painting or later on after the paint is dry. And if I want to add more layers on top of the painting, I'm free to do that as well. Something that's really interesting about oil paint, and I'm sure that those of you who oil paint have noticed, is that there are some colors that stay very shiny and they look how it looks when you're actually painting. So after it dries, it still retains that shine, and other colors kind of just become dull and flat. So if you want to do a second layer on top of your first, I recommend just getting some linseed oil in a clean brush and rubbing it against that specific area. That'll really create a cohesive look to your painting, and just rub it off so you don't have any excess linseed oil. Just have enough so that you get that consistency throughout the entire painting. And this is really helpful because then I don't really have to fuss about getting everything 100% right from the first painting. I always know that I can go on top of it and make some corrections if I need to. And I feel that is the really beautiful thing about oil painting, is that it's very forgiving. So we don't really have to have that stress that we often feel about, getting everything right on the first try. Now, I really want to go over some of the myths that I've heard, and largely the preconceived notions are that oil painting is too complicated, and that it usually revolves around that. And I feel like it's important for me to try to share my process and how simple I think it is, because my setup is pretty, it's pretty simple. I don't have super high ceilings, and most of the time it's encouraged for the lighting to come from the ceiling. So my lighting setup is to my left-hand side. As I am a righty. I paint with my right hand, so I don't want any shadows to be created while I'm working. So I have it on an angle behind me, a few feet away to the left-hand side, and I'm able to work that way. My palette, I just use a piece of glass as my palette, where that's where I mix my paints and mostly handle all of that kind of work. And that glass is sitting on this wooden table. On top of this table, I also have my mediums. I have a few brushes. I keep my paints pretty close by, and also on top of this table, I have a rag to just clean off my brush whenever I need to. And there's one thing that's extremely important, and it's solvents. Now, solvents are toxic, but the beautiful thing is that you don't really need to work with solvents at all. When it comes to working with your paints, you can just use your linseed oil and your paint as your medium, and that's the way that I work. I just use those two things. Sometimes I mix up what mediums I'm using. Sometimes I use safflower oil, sometimes I use stand oil, sometimes I use galkid, but it usually stays within that mixture between paint and medium, because paint, what paint consists of, if you're buying quality paints, is just linseed oil and pigment mixed together, and the linseed oil is the binder. The linseed oil is the thing that holds the paint together. And, I would say my process is not messy at all. I know some artists have a very different process. So, you kind of have to understand what kind of artist you are and how you like to work. There's nothing wrong with being extremely neat and tidy, and there's also nothing wrong with being super messy. But I'm just saying it doesn't have to create chaos in your home if you want to work from home. So yeah, those are some of the things that I really wanted to discuss, specifically about the things that I've heard about oil painting. It really is simple. It's similar to working in acrylics, not necessarily the process of painting with it, but the setup and what it takes to get started. I recommend that if you've been thinking about starting to oil paint, and you already have your materials, just start today. I feel like a lot of times we are self-proclaimed perfectionists, and what I see is that really just causes us to procrastinate and not get started as soon as we should, and in turn that just ends up hurting our practice, that ends up hurting the work that we're making. So if you have your oil paints, like even just gesso a piece of paper, or you have a small canvas around, make a portrait, make a still life, make a landscape, work on something abstract, paint whatever you want. But it's important for you to get started, and it's important for you to get familiar with the medium. So, that kind of builds encouragement, keeps you going. The next day, you've already realized that it's not as complicated as you thought it was. So you're more motivated to just continue, So everyone, I hope I've earned your thumbs up. If you found something valuable from this video, please like the video. It really helps the channel. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, if you have any questions, please write them in the comments down below. Stay safe and healthy out there, everyone, and see you next time.